All right, good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the City of Sunbury. It's December 23rd, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Last meeting of 2024. So for those of you watching online, we'll see you next month. With that said, please join me in a moment of silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
Mr. Gokenhour, absent. Mrs. Miller, here. Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Mrs. Crawford, here. Mr. Soderman,
Here.
5 present. We have quorum.
All right, the first item on the agenda is a public hearing. This is related to the plan development for Local Provision LLC. We will have the applicant present and review the staff report. We'll open it up to public comment for those who have been sworn in. And then have commission questions and comments. After that, the public hearing will end, and then the commission will review the amendment to the plan development as a potential action item. With that said, I'd like to hand it to Mr. Vic Whitney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mayor indicated, my name is Vic Whitney. I'm legal counsel to the Planning and Zoning Commission. As he further indicated, the first item of tonight's agenda, or the first item on tonight's agenda, is this amendment to plan development submitted by Local Provision LLC. This is a public hearing. As you can see, there's a stenographer here who is taking everything down. In a moment, we'll have anybody who wishes to give comment on this application, including the applicant, stand. We'll have you raise your right hand and be sworn in so that we have a record of this evening's proceedings. When I turn it back over to the mayor, he will direct persons in turn, including the applicant and anybody else, to come up to the lectern to offer their comments. As you notice, there's a microphone there. Please speak slowly and clearly and confidently into the microphone so that we can hear everything. The commission members may have questions. If they do, please let them get their questions out or their comments out before we respond. The stenographer can only take notation of one person speaking at any given time. Please direct all your comments forward to the commission and they will be directing their comments directly to you. And so with that said, anyone who believes they may want to give comment on this amendment to the plan development submitted by Local Provision LLC, please stand. If you later decide that you don't want to give a comment, you don't have to give a comment, but we do need you to be sworn in. So if you would stand and raise your right hand, and we'll have the stenographer swear us in.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would move to admit exhibits on this hearing. So I marked as Exhibit A, a four-page document, which is the application submitted by the applicant and 3 plans that were submitted with it. Exhibit B is 7 pages that were submitted at last month's informal presentation, including letters submitted as well as additional plan and narrative submitted by the applicant. Exhibit C is the results of the noise level study, 2-page document. Exhibit D is the public notice and proof of mailing to the affected property owners, which is 2 pages. And Exhibit E is a 3-page document, front and back. 5 pages, I guess, but 3 physical pages, which is the staff report. So with that, I will move to admit the exhibits.
Accept. Thank you very much. All right, we'll open it up to Mr. Donnell, the applicant. If you could verify that the microphone is on, it should have a light.
My name is Dana Donnell. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'm the managing member of Local Provision LLC. I live in Sunbury, Ohio, 12453 Monkey Hollow Road. I appreciate the council's desire to listen to my request to amend the original zoning approval, as I want to move one of the buildings to the west to facilitate more green space, more open space for children. center the building on the existing retention pond, which I think increases the patron experience. I think this change is viable to the project. I don't believe that it has any impact whatsoever to the surrounding area, neighbors, or the original zoning intent. It does enhance the family experience of this development, which I believe then better serves the community. On my last presentation, there were a couple of concerns Mr. Stetterman brought up, which I took seriously. I do commit to a fountain in the retention pond. So we'll aerate that. As I attached last month a letter from Romanelli and Hughes affirming their positive read on the development and the adjustment of the building. I was not I wasn't aware that I needed to request a different use of the building, only because a restaurant does fall within the original planned community zoning approval. But if it is the case that I do need to change the use, then I would desire for that to be approved and a part of the amendment. So with regards to sound levels, yeah, it's kind of, I thought it's a great concern, and I was really kind of out of my wheelhouse on that. So I did a little bit of research to find out, what kind of decibels are normal for an outdoor music venue. And so if you move down, it's on the slide, I think you'll see. Yeah, keep going. Okay, there you go. I found an article, and I did include that with the presentation that you were given for today, and found that 70 to 75 dBs or decibels would be a pretty good volume that would start to interfere with conversation. So I thought, okay, that's a benchmark. So then what I did was I went out to the property with a sound metering device, and I first took ambient readings as a benchmark. So no music, and you'll find that's the first 4 readings, and you see the A, B, C, D is also delineated on an aerial. A is the location. It's close to the location of the back of the proposed first building. B is the housing development to the south, both B and C, but B was a little bit closer to my development. So I picked it up to NC, and then I went to the back of Vince Romanelli's project, that's the D, and took readings, and you can see above, on the D over there by Vince Romanelli, that was a little shaky because there was a lot of construction noise going on at the time. So the meter was just going up and down. So I just took an average. And then I went back to my site, and I turned on, my son-in-law had a pretty big boom box. And so I cranked up Chris Stapleton to about 94 dBs at was the high point. And then with it going, I went back to this sites B, C, and D. B, while I was standing at B, I did take a reading. It was no different than the reading without the music, but I could hear no music. Then went over to C, being a court, Again, took a reading, pretty close to my first reading. No music sound was present. And then I went back to behind Vince's building and, again, it was kind of jumping all over the place. So I felt confident that, that what we're offering would not have any negative, noise consequences to any of the residents south of the development. So those were the two concerns that I left with last month, but I'm now open to addressing anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Donnell. Let's get to the staff report and then we'll have anybody from the public that wishes to speak, and then we'll open it up to the commission for questions and comments.
Cool.
Thank you, sir. Staff report overview.
Thank you, Mayor. As Mr. Donnell went over, the main reasons for this amendment are going to be the uses of the building, the relocation of Building A, reduction in parking, and then the layout changes regarding the spaces and the parking lot itself. With the relocation of Building A, as Dana Donald said, is moving towards the west, being more centrally located on the pond. As he mentioned, the uses, it is a change of use per building. In the initial approved documents, each building had a specific use tied to it. In this amendment, those specific uses are not tied to it. So all the uses that were permitted within that first zoning can now just be applied to every building within it rather than being a specific use. So looking specifically at Building A, it was professional use and retail. Now those restrictions are lifted off, so it could be a restaurant now rather than being those two. The permitted uses on the site would remain the same. Reduction in parking, based on staff, what we've looked at, we think that'd be fine and is consistent, as Mr. Donnell put in his preliminary presentation, looking at the reduction in square footage, in addition to the parking on the streets, Sunbury Meadows Drive and West Granville, and then the parking lots that are going to be around the area, including a new one by the town hall. We think there's adequate parking for the development, and it is consistent with that initial plan as far as percentage wise, the reduction in square footage and the reduction in parking. And then we did have community feedback from a different commercial development, and a lot of what they were asking for is what Mr. Donnell is proposing, looking at breweries, looking at residents and walkable destinations, and looking at local shops. So we think it is consistent with that. That was a different project, but it was in the same neighborhood, just going south down Sunbury Meadows Drive. And then with that, the noise level, we don't have anything specifically tied to noise level aside from our public nuisance regulations, which would be operated after the fact. So if it was reported or if the zoning officer noticed that they were above decibels, then we would be able to go forward and investigate and enforce the appropriate penalties based on penalties for violation listed in our zoning code. And with that, the staff would recommend approval for this amendment. We think it is consistent with the original character of the approval from that original development plan, and it just helps providing further details and tying it into more of a destination, as we kind of want in the community ourselves, and we've heard community feedback regarding this type of project prior, so we would recommend for approval.
Thank you. All right, we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would wish to speak regarding this project? All right, I'll open it up to the commission for questions or comments. Any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I have a comment, I guess, specifically and only about the noise. You pointed out to me the section that discusses noise, and it's terse, to say the least. It seems like maybe this issue hasn't come up, which is perhaps why it's not more well vetted in the ordinance. I look at this as an opportunity. I think the plan you're putting together is a good one. I don't think you're in jeopardy of having this impacted by the lack of information. Frankly, I think that the lack of provisions in the ordinance don't make it easy for you. If we had a better ordinance that said these are the expectations, you could easily abide by those. The lack of that, I think, is the issue. How can we improve the zoning ordinance? I guess that's my question to staff. What is what is the first step? What is the second step to getting more details about what an applicant should be doing? Because in a growing community, I don't think he's going to be the first guy that comes in here saying, I want to have external entertainment on my property. And it would be nice to be able to provide some guidance on, okay, this is the rule book. This is what this guy, this applicant did before you, and what the expectations are. I know one of the things we reviewed at the last commission meeting was a lighting study, and it was multiple pages showing, and it was really thorough. I would expect that the noise conditions of a property kind of had the same level of scrutiny. So my question is, what can we do, and what can we do quickly? You know, not a 6-month plan, but by the next commission meeting, what information could we be reviewing from staff about, okay, here's what somebody else's ordinance provides, or here's a checklist of things that we would give to an applicant when they're pursuing something that's going to have external noise.
Not to get too far off topic, but me and Carla have had discussions looking forward at keeping active tabs on what we want to change in our zoning ordinances and being more consistent on applying changes to our zoning ordinances. So it's not something we have on the agenda for this meeting in particular, but going into next year, it was definitely something we're looking forward to, putting together pieces that we see and pieces that we're informed on into the zoning text, and then bringing them forward and kind of reviewing them as a group, or giving them to you guys to review and seeing what exactly we need for this exact question. There's several other pieces we're missing in our zoning ordinance. So it is something we're actively looking at and trying to get that plan in place to apply things that we're seeing, because we're growing better, or growing more than ever. So we do need to get ahead of these rather than waiting till after we get someone who applies and then applying it after the fact. Carla, if you have anything else on that point.
I realize you asked what we could do before the next meeting, and we absolutely can look to see what other communities in our area have for their code and compare it, and maybe give you a brief summary of where ours could be improved, or maybe find some ordinances that we think look like something we'd like to mirror.
Thank you. That would be fantastic.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the plan development for local provision.
Close the public hearing first, then.
Sorry about that. Thank you. On record, I made a mistake. Go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight, Sarah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. All right, next item on the agenda, commission review amendment to the plan development local provision LLC. I'm going to, is there any additional comment or question on this? I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the plan development. Second by Mrs. Crawford. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford, Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Mr. Dono, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. All right, next item is commission reviewed lot split Wilcox community. The applicant, is there an applicant? Come on up, sir. You can state your name.
Matt Ackroyd with CESO Land Surveyor for project representing Wilcox Communities.
All right, great. What would you like us to do?
Well, I'm presenting a lot split for a proposed mixed-use development. I'm not sure if the lot split has been presented, but it encompasses a piece of ground that will eventually have a mixed-use development on it with access to a future public road being Four Winds Drive.
All right. Good deal. I'm generally familiar with what you're mentioning. Are there any exhibits in here?
There was the taller sheet of paper, and then it was folded over. And then just a few notes I had. We went over, this is for the Wilcox communities.
Right.
This lot split in particular is around the 3-story apartment buildings, so you can kind of see where the highway cut off. So I believe that this lot split is just to cut off those apartment buildings in the southeast. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I'm familiar with it. I don't know that everybody else is familiar with, what we're talking about here.
Residents and then below, south of that are the.
Yes, so this
apartment
was the Wilcox Communities
Yeah.
project with the single story and the 3-story apartments that was approved last month. So this is just a continuation, not a continuation, but a lot split to split the parcel, specifically looking at the 3-story apartments. So this wouldn't be, this is to split it all from the one parcel it currently is to give that its own separate parcel for the 3-story building apartments.
This is the visual, but this doesn't do a great job on presenting exactly where this is or what it's asking. I'll give you generally, I'll try to explain it if somebody can pull up Google Maps or the auditor site in the meantime. All right, so this property is located south of Cracker Barrel and Panera, along Four Winds Drive and also 3 Bs and a K. So its easternmost boundary is, it says Goodwin here, but this is really Interstate 71 to, in some area to the east. On the west, which you can't see, is 3 Bs and a K. To the north on this map again would be Cracker Barrel. South of this would be the future Sunbury Parkway. This development is Woodland Lakes. They brought forward the single story multifamily product and the 3-story multifamily product. This is a necessary step for the Coughlin Group to be able to develop this site on the southeast. Hopefully I didn't jumble that too much, but there we go. There's the visual. So there it is.
So there you can see this dark line here is what the lot split will represent. And then this area of land here, it will be left for the future interchange there.
Right. Okay. Any comments or questions by the commission? Any comments by staff? You recommend we approve this?
I would recommend approval.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the lot split for Wilcox Communities. Do we need any more description on that, or is that good enough?
I think 12.907 acre legal description, lot split approval, yeah.
0.907 acre with a legal description and an exhibit that was provided by staff. Thank you.
Second?
Second by Mr. Grumney. Discussion? Roll call?
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Deal. All right, next is the preliminary presentation, the Ohio Fund LLC anticipated process. We have the applicant here this evening. Good evening, sir.
Everyone,
Merry Christmas.
almost there.
Are you getting sick?
What's that?
Are you getting sick?
I am getting sick.
Oh.
I will, yeah, no, I had a rough night last night, but here I am, so.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. We have the Ohio Fund, who I'll get into who they are in a moment. They are in the process of annexing 93.1 acres to the city of Sunbury. I believe January 8th is when that is scheduled to be hopefully accepted by city council. Excuse me. Dan's Valley Road is on the south. This is just to the west of its intersection with Miller Paul Road. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Proposing the LI, Limited Industrial District, which is the addition to your code that you made approximately a year ago. I wanted to demonstrate to you up there to the northwest that those are also zoned LI. If you recall, there was a significantly large amount of acreage, including the AEP electric facility and other property that ended up, as you orient here, this ended up being Amazon Data Services, which was obviously a phenomenal announcement for the community. And I think representative of what happens when, as I spoke about when I was going through the other processes, this is representative of how you can really tee up sites to be readily available for users and sort of shovel ready, so to speak. So with this application, we're looking to just provide that same straight zoning district that applies to those other areas. I think while maybe not formally adopted into a comprehensive plan, I think the city seems to be wanting to expand the business park out this way, and so we believe it's an appropriate location. One more slide, if you don't mind. I took these images straight from your code and wanted to remind you that, among other things, permitted uses include professional office, data centers, light industrial, and flex space. As I mentioned, Amazon purchased the property to the northwest, and the Ohio Fund is a venture capital group that is made up of several individuals that are pretty well known throughout Ohio, being venture capitalists in other realms. But what they're trying to do is invest in property in key locations that they can then market to hopefully Ohio companies is the goal. And the interesting thing about this group is they'll buy and hold property for a number of years until they find the right opportunity. So it's meant to be a growth driver for the state of Ohio. I think they're looking to invest 25% of their money in Central Ohio, 25% in Cleveland, 25% in Cincinnati, spread the balance throughout. So really kind of a neat initiative. So no immediate plans for this site, but here again, just like we did with the Amazon piece, would like to kind of tee this up so that it can be marketed in earnest to other users. The other thing I'll point out is I do believe we're going to be zoning a little bit more property than is being annexed. I think the previous annexation included a bit of property that didn't get zoned due to some timing issues with this transaction where Ohio Fund bought it. So when I file the zoning, there may be a little bit more acreage, maybe another 50 acres or so. But that 93 acres, we need to get into the city first before we can do that all at once.
All right, understood. Thank you. And just so I understand, the plan all along was to bring this particular property in. Just due to contiguity requirements, it wasn't able to come in earlier tracks of annexation. That's why it's been phased over the past year.
Yes, Mayor, very good question. I think this is the fourth annexation we've done out this way, and under Ohio law, what happens is the procedure we were basically required to use under the revised code. You have to have certain contiguity requirements with the municipal boundary. 5% of your perimeter boundary has to be contiguous with the municipality's boundary in order to qualify. And then you can't have any more than 500 acres in a single annexation. So this is a remnant of how we kind of had to get here and get that continuity. And then we obviously had to split up 708 acres or so into separate annexations previously because we weren't meeting that 500 acre maximum threshold.
Understand. Thank you. Great. So we'll see you back next month.
I hope so.
All right, good deal. Thank you very much.
I'll stay away from everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda. By the way, was Kiwi supposed to come back this month?
No, you guys approved them last month. They'll be going to council in
Yeah.
January.
My goodness gracious, it's been a year. You check that off. Thank you. All right, do we have any visitors? Hey, Steve? All right, looking for a motion to approve the minutes. Motion, we're gonna motion by Mr. Grumney,
I'll second.
second by Mrs. Miller. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
We have the zoning report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This past month, we had 14 new zoning certificates, 12 of which were for new builds. We had 21 new occupancy permits, most of them being from Pulte Homes. They reached out and said they had a lot of purchases this month, so they sent me a whole bunch of those all at one time. And then as other permits go, we got one fence, and the BZA did approve 2 variance applications this month as well. And for that puts our total at the year at 183, which is 28 above our total from last year at 155, slightly below for new builds for the month of December, but still way up for the year. So any questions regarding zoning, or do you guys want any more information on variances that were approved at all?
I'm just curious what they were.
Yeah, so we had an applicant who was looking to, he had a project revolving a lot split. So he wanted a lot split and then put a new home on the other split of the lot. So he was looking for a variance for front setback, for rear setback, for lot square footage, and for the square footage requirement for his home. So that was approved. And then our second approval was for a corner lot fence. So in our zoning text is a little weird and jumbled on corner lot privacy fences. So if you have a corner lot and you're looking to do a privacy fence, you do have to come to the BZA for approval on that. So they came and that was approved as well.
Very much. All right, any questions for Alex, comments?
Quick question. In my line of work, I do something similar for how we do month to month in historical data, but then I also have to provide a forecast. Do we do any type of forecasting for permits for the coming year based on properties that we know are being built on? So we got an idea if we're going to go up another 20%, another 30%. Do we do anything like that? Is that typical?
We have not historically done that. It is something we can look into if that is an interest of the commission.
If we're on the way up, it would be nice to know how quickly we're going to, what we're going to be looking at next year. Be a good data point to.
We can look into that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that. If you're not doing any projections, then how are you doing your revenue in the budget for next year? The line item.
Well, that's probably not a question for Alex.
Yeah.
Or unless you're asking about permits and things.
I'm saying how he asked this question, but then how are you projecting the revenue?
Yes, that would be a good question for finance committee and for Dana Steffen. I personally do not have involvement with that, but assuming we do it, we could potentially tie it into that as well.
From a finance perspective, I'll give like the layman's version without going too deep in the weeds. We just run rate. So, if it was zoning permits in particular, Dana is taking typically a conservative run rate approach. So what were the past 2 years? Let's take a balance of those two, maybe chop it down if it's a revenue category. And typically we haven't missed, I suppose.
So we do have in my mind, those are the same things, because you shouldn't have it projected on for the zoning commission versus your revenue.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to do it differently, then both they need to tie together.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Mr. Chairman of the Finance Committee.
No, so we could discuss further in finance.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. I like what you're saying though, on this particular report, based on, I assume when you're forecasting, you're going to take into consideration not only where we've been, but what's in the pipeline, like Kintner Crossing.
Wilcox, yeah.
Yeah, Wilcox, Roman Elliott Hughes, Pulte.
So if I understand right now, we just look at historical data, do kind of some averaging, look at projected growth and think, okay, that's a good number for, I mean, we're talking budget again, so I apologize. But what you're asking for, Jason, is not only look at historical, but look at what's in the pipeline and say, okay, assuming that we reach 80% of this, 60% of this, whatever it might be, that this is the growth we're looking at for 2025.
Yeah, the basis, I see the chart going up, obviously, and we've gone up, let's say 30 per year for the last 4 years, obviously beginning back in 2020 when things tanked. Obviously, my understanding and my vision of planning and zoning is smart growth, not rampant growth. How do we know when we're getting out of control with permitting everything and just saying yes, 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 and all of a sudden we realize that, oh, we did 300 next year when we did 180. Is there a point where we start to scrutinize things differently because it seems like, oh yeah, somebody come in and grabbed up property and put 300 homes, we got 300 permits, how does that affect everything else? And now I agree that the finance side of this and the revenue generating side is an important side for the community, but the growth is an important side to the population. Just the cars, the people, the commercial that supports it, and everything affects everything when you add more people. So forecasting is just about saying this is what we think is going to happen in the next year, and then you kind of just balance it out throughout the year and say, wow, we missed something big, you know, we need to be thinking about that when we do this next year. You know, just good planning involves a little bit of forward thinking, not just looking at past data. Past data tells you what you did and how it turned out. So.
Thinking it's there. We have another report that's not shown here where it shows like neighborhood build out, what's been approved. That's probably a good one to add as a monthly update.
You guys will be getting that. There's an end of year zoning report that'll come in January and it'll be presented at council as well that I'm working on that has that number in it. I can keep adding that into monthlies as well. And I'll workshop a few things for a projections style page in general and put some things together and we can see what we like, what we don't like at the next meeting as well.
Yeah, it's also good just baseline data. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where we're like, holy smokes, we had 500 occupancy permits issued, like out of nowhere. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think. I understand what Jason's asking. And I think he's asked you to figure out how to do it. So that's good.
It's a good starting point. Everything we've approved this year that hasn't been permitted yet for occupancy, I mean, that should be a barn. If there's a graph already showing what we've approved, you know, we've approved some big communities with lots of new homes.
Right.
So what is the tally of just the stuff that we do know about?
Right.
That's the beginning of your forecast. And then there's the ones that get approved in January that are going to get done in November that, oh, wait a minute, those are still going to be 2025. So, you know, what do we know and what are we anticipating to add on top?
I believe that in January, when we meet with Delaware County, because they have steps in our permit approval process, we'll be talking through these forecasting issues because they too need to look at their staffing to see where it's growing for the assistance that they offer our community as well. So to be continued.
All right, any other questions on the zoning report? All right, discussion, new business, Mr. Grumney,
Do not.
Mrs. Miller.
I will not be here in January and February.
Yeah.
I put my schedule together so you'll know where I'm at,
Oh, okay.
so I can rub it into you.
Right. I'm happy for you. Those are good months to travel. Excellent.
Especially since I'm going where it's gonna be very warm.
Good for you. That's awesome. Anything else?
No, I just wanted to help you with making sure you have a quorum.
Oh, yeah. Good deal. Thank you. Mrs. Crawford, anything new? Mr. Stotterman?
Merry Christmas. Travel safe, everyone.
Yeah.
Hope to see everybody back the same way as we are today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say, even though Mr. Gokenauer is not here, he's had a long tenure of service, both on council, planning and zoning commission, parks committees, tree and landscape committee, when that existed. You always see him on the square. He's a local face. He's not going anywhere, but his time of this type of service is at least temporarily halted. But I do want to thank Mr. Gokenauer for his service. And then also with that said, we do have a new planning and zoning commission member joining us for a 3-year term starting in January. His name is Mark Long. We've worked with him in the past. Mark Long is on our Board of Zoning Appeals and his terms come to an end and he will join us. For this group, think about seating arrangements. We can slot Mark over there or there, but it's also the time to like shuffle up if you want to. Yes. If anybody wants this one. You can have it.
Keep that.
Just as another note too, I talked to Mr. Gokenauer when I handed him his packet and he said while he's off, the Planning and Zoning Commission will still be hearing his input on a lot of these issues and he'll still come in and try to represent the smaller part of Sunbury. So we haven't seen the last of him.
And he's on our streetscapes committee.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Working group. So, absolutely, we agree. All right, next meeting, January 27th. Mrs. Miller will not be in attendance. Any issues from anyone else? We have it. Okay. Good deal. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Go second by Mr. Grumney. Discussion? Roll call?
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
5 yeas, we are adjourned.